Well met, everyone. I am Rich the Lich. Today, I'm taking a look at the Creature Compendium of Ravnica. This is my review. By the end of this video, I hope to inform you and help you decide whether this might be some content that is a good fit for you and your gaming group. Let's get into it. This is a book that I purchased for like 12 bucks this morning on DM's Guild. So it's a downloadable PDF. It is 60 pages. I don't know if it comes in any other format. You can research that for yourself, meaning is there an actual hardcover or softcover book you can get, but we're going to look at it in a digital format. I'm going to show you what's what, and we'll talk through it. So first, a very quick overview. I will compare and contrast and relate, or I think the word is refer, to this, which is D&D Beyond, where I have the Guildmasters Guide to Ravnica, the official WotC-produced book, conveniently in on-screen digital, if you will, PDF format. So this is the official book that I purchased when I bought the Legendary Bundle. Guildmasters Guide to Ravnica is an official 5th edition campaign setting that was put out in, I think it was November of 2018. So we're looking at something about 6 months old. Now, interestingly, where Ravnica comes from, a bit of background. In the early 90s, Wizards of the Coast and Richard Garfield created Magic the Gathering, the very, very well-known trading card game. The Magic, even though we kind of know it as you put cards on the table, you have some casting costs, and you do things, there's a bunch of story. There's backstory to it, right? And one of the settings that a lot of the card sets were made in is this world, this place called Ravnica. You'll often see Ravnica known or mentioned as a city. They're both one and the same. So the bulk of this plane of Ravnica is a city of the same name. And within the city, there's 10 guilds. Now, though this has been created in the Magic space, and in the late 90s, so just a few years after they created Magic the Gathering, Wizards of the Coast acquired the property of Dungeons and Dragons. It wasn't until November of 2018 that they kind of meshed both worlds together. And they took the background, this setting from Magic the Gathering, and they created an official D&D book, a D&D setting. And in that official book, what we see on screen here, the Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica, there's a bunch of cool lore and details, but there's also a bestiary where there's entirely new, I think like 75 plus, entirely new monsters. So not like you would find in the monster manual, that are specific, right? They're of the same sort of flow and vibe and rhythm of the guilds and the various entities in the world of Ravnica. This new book, what I'm reviewing today, is let me jump over to page 60 and it tells you what it is. This Creature Compendium is loaded with monsters inspired by cards from Magic the Gathering. You now know why. This book pairs perfectly with Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica. It's an essential tool for any dungeon master running their campaign set in the City of Guilds. So I think what was mentioned here is there's supposed to be like 90 new monsters to be used should you be running a game within the world of Ravnica. While I have done other reviews, this will be my first review where I use my new 15-point system. And what's going to happen is there's going to be 3 categories. We're going to talk about layout, design, and editing, category number 1. We're going to talk about art, and then we're going to talk about the bulk of it all, which is the content. Each of those 3 categories will be rated between 1 and 5. 5, let me kind of give you the numbers real quick. A 1 basically means it's terrible, run away from it. It can't be any worse. A 2, it sucks, but I kind of applaud the effort. A 3, it's so-so. There isn't anything to write home about, but it's sufficient for whatever it is that the information that's trying to be conveyed. A 4 is basically saying that that's about as good as it could have gotten for that type of content. A 5 is perfection. A 5 is something that all content in the rest of the universe and throughout the rest of time should emulate whatever they did. And as I said, I'm going to give it a 1 through 5 rating in layout, editing, and design, a 1 through 5 rating for art, and a 1 through 5 rating on content. At the very end, I'll give you my final thoughts, and then I'll show you what that total score is out of 15 points. The closer you get to 15, you'll kind of see if you're a mathy type of person, you'll see a number that might indicate whether this is something that you should really get. But hopefully, just through informing you and talking over this product, you'll be able to get a good vibe on whether or not this is something that you want. So we have a front cover. I like the use of colors, very simple. As a PDF, obviously, I can only talk to the layout, design, and the editing of what we see on screen. There's no physical tactile thing where I can't tell you, obviously, about what the cover feels like and how good the interior pages feel and whatnot. But 60 pages of a PDF here that we're getting for about $12 on DM's Guild, downloaded immediately, so that's a plus, that you can access this stuff right away or 3 o'clock in the morning, should you so be inclined. As we scroll down, one thing you'll notice is it follows that aesthetic. We've got this yellow-orangish, and we have that maroon color. We have this parchment background, which provides a good background. It's a good contrast to the darker font, so it's very readable. You have table of contents here in a very familiar font of that maroon reddish color. What you're going to start to notice as a monster book is, from a layout and design point of view, it emulates what we already know in the monster manual. As I scroll down faster really quickly, everything is in column format. It's easily readable. Look at this. You've got Avatar of Discord in that same simple font that we would know. You've got the same italicized font, which indicates what it is and what its alignment is. There's even the same divider. You have the armor class, hit points, and speed separated by the stats. Moving on into other information, going into the various traits it might have, and finally into the actions. To the point of the things that are italicized, the things that are bolded, the same use of font, it's identical to what we would see in the monster manual. So in that regard, going down through it, the way the layout is, the readability of things, navigation, we'll give it 5 out of 5 for layout and editing and design. Next, let's take a look at art. So we have the letter A here, right? Okay, well, first let's back up a little bit. We have the front cover. Simple. I actually like the simple aesthetic. I'm a graphic designer 25 plus years, so I appreciate any logo element looking things and very graffiti-ish. I just like the simple. So it looks really good. You've got your credits and whatnot. Got the same piece of artwork here. Now, the letter A, we've got 4 monsters in here. We have an Aeromunculus, an Ash Zealot, an Avatar of Discord, and an Azorius Guildmage. There's no art. 0. You have the first monster in the letter B, which is a Basilica Bell Hunt. Beautiful artwork. Beam Splitter Mage, there is none. The Biogenic Ooze, cool artwork. Then you have this. Okay, let's just look at it really quick. This is a Blood Operative. It's on the same page, right? I get it. We're talking blood. Vampires on Ravnica, blah, blah, blah. We're talking vampires. I get the relationship, but is this thing almost like a mimic would be, where it's an inanimate object that comes to life? Let's see if there's something that indicates this. Anytime the Blood Operative deals damage to a creature, it regains hit points. While in dim light or darkness, the Blood Operative can take the hide action. The Blood Operative deals an additional... So, and then here, vampires on Ravnica differ from those in the monster manual. They lack many of the strengths and weaknesses of traditional vampires. However, they still have a thirst for blood. Vampire in the Cities of Guilds must be careful. House Demir is the best guild suited to their skill set. The Demir need assassins and spies. Okay, the Orzhov Syndicate attracts many vampires. Adventurers may face a blood... Okay, it's a vampire. I get the relationship, but you don't want to just take things that are related. In a book that is based on monsters, if you look at it and you brought it down to the very elementary school level, you bring in some cool or talk about cool monsters to 12-year-olds, show them some cool monsters. I understand. In my 25 years of graphic design, I've also dabbled into the whole concept art thing, and I've been among art design studios and things like this. I understand art is very expensive, and I understand that we're also looking at the creations of one person. But either have artwork or don't have artwork. If you are going to have artwork, find some consistency. When you have artwork, make sure that it is enough that I can, when I say, guys, you see around the corner a Blood Operative, here's a picture. What the hell does that have to do with anything? So, poor choice of art in that regard. When you have it, if I quickly scroll down, this is just, it's kind of it's the logo, it's the heraldry, the mark of a Boros Legionnaire. Beautiful artwork on these 3, but then you have, a pencil sketch. I'm not a fan. There's not enough artwork at all. For just strictly a monster book, I think you need to have that accompanying artwork. In that regard, I'm going to give it a 2 out of 5. It just doesn't read well for me. And I'll also talk about something else when we get into the content of why I'm giving it a 2 out of 5 instead of maybe even a 3 when we get to the content section of what makes the art, the absence of art, even more significant. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of it all. This is the content. So, for 60 pages, for $12, are we getting enough? First off, are we getting enough different? Is it just a rehash or reskin of the same stuff that's in Ravnica? Or is it seemingly new, but we're just cut and pasting traits and abilities from the monster manual so that all the melee things sound the same and all the spell lists sound the same? So, as far as this goes, what we're looking at is you have a bunch of new things. When we look at Ravnica itself, I've done the research here, the detective work already. There is a bunch of new stuff. It's all new. I'm not seeing a complete rehash of... There's a few things that are very similar. There's a few traits that are a little bit different. But for the most part, we're looking at things that are not in Guildmasters Guide to Ravnica. So in that regard, very well done. Let me talk a moment, because I just came off of the art section. Let me talk a little bit about one huge missing point, which is why I rated the art so poorly, or the absence of it, why that was such a significant thing. It does a nice job, as I said, in the design of it all, and the layout, of giving you that stat block. And then what the author did is, you have the Aeromunculus. The Simic Conclave created these friendly and strange homunculi to act as bodyguards and servants. They can often be seen traveling from Zonot 7 to the various universities. You get into the Avatar of Discord. An Avatar of Discord is born from the twisted mind of Rakdos himself. They are his groupies, creatures with a keen wit and insatiable appetite. Adventurers are most likely to find them at a Rakdos Pain Club or carrying out the will of their Dark Master. I like the descriptions. I appreciate that it gives you more than just stat blocks. It gives you some sense of their place in Ravnica. For a newly created thing, it's good lore and detail. But there's no description. And when you are lacking in artwork, it's nice to have a description so that way you can just allow your players to use their imagination, or it at least informs you of where you can search and what sort of image you might find online through Pinterest or ArtStation or Google Images to accompany that, to bring your own artwork to the table. For example, let's contrast this. We're talking content, right? So this is the big section. Even though it is valued at the same level 1 through 5, I should almost weigh it with more points, quite simply because content is everything. Are you getting your money's worth? This book is called The Creature Codex. It's made by Kobold Press. I know we're not talking about apples to apples where we have one guy on a PDF uploaded for $12 on DM's Guild. This is a fully produced thing. There's a lot of eyes and ears behind this, and a lot of developers and people involved, and the resources and production level. But for about $35 on Amazon, so triple the cost. We have 60 pages. You have 400 plus pages. You have an actual physical thing. You have a hardcover book. You have binding. You have paper. Every piece, every monster in this book has beautiful artwork. There is not one that does not have an art piece with it. And we're talking the highest levels. If I was rating exclusively the art alone in this book, I'm giving it a 5 out of 5. Now, why am I going on and on about this book? We're not talking about that. Here's why. In the beginning of every monster section, there's an acid ant. There's this italicized section. An ant the size of a house cat with a throbbing green abdomen gnaws everything in sight. Hissing liquid drips from its chittering mandibles. Next page. The Ahuizotl, I think? Its hide black and rubbery. The Ahuizotl's dark hair bristles into clumps of sharp spikes to protect it. The creature's long tail ends in a clawed hand, which it uses to grab and drag prey underwater. Not only is there artwork, there's accompanying description. You can go off of either one, just read that to your players and let them formulate their own Nashi monster in their head, and or show them the artwork. If you're not going to have artwork, you need to have descriptions. The omission of that from a content point of view, yes, it's beautiful and wonderful, so good points in that regard that you're giving some backstory to things, but there needs to be more of an aesthetic. We're talking about a monster book that's a very visual thing. This isn't just, you're not reading a novel or pure background history setting info and this is how the world ended a long time ago. You're reading about things that will be manifested into a miniature on the table. in a pawn, into some visual representation on terrain. You have to accompany that. So there's some negative points when it comes to content. Now, as far as the content itself, as I said, there's a lot of new stuff, so that's a good thing, okay? But let's take a look at this for a second. I'm going to jump over to a few pages in, right? We have an Izzet Guildmage. This is just one example, okay? But it's important when we're dealing with content. So these guild mages are mid-ranking Izzet researchers. They represent the types of useful assistance utilized by higher-ranking Izzet mages who are conducting important research on behalf of the Izzet League. These are representatives of one of the more important guilds in Ravnica. If we look at Guildmasters Guide to Ravnica, and you were to create an Izzet character, one of the strengths of the official book, remember what it says here. This book pairs perfectly with Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica. It's an essential tool for any dungeon master running their campaign set in the City of Guilds. If we look at the Ravnica book, when you make an Izzet League, or you join the Izzet League, right, the guild, it says right here, for all of the spells in the different guilds, for you, the spells on the Izzet Guild spells table are added to the spell list of your spellcasting class. So as a spellcaster joining this guild, you get a new spell list, or to complement your existing spells. That's important because it's showing that the Izzet, first and foremost, led by a very powerful dragon, they're made up of mages and various experimenters and inventors and things of that nature. They're a magic, lightning-esque vibe and feel to them. I mean, the visuals of them, the art of them, how they talk about them. The best example is the Chaos Bolt. The Chaos Bolt spell is a favorite of Izzet spellcasters because of its unpredictable nature. You have Chaos Bolt here. You have Create or Destroy Water. You have Unseen Servant. You have Heat Metal. You have Rope Trick. Let's look at the Izzet Guildmage in this book. His spells. Firebolt. Where is Heat Metal, Rope Trick? Second level. You have Blur, you have Agonazar Scorch, and you have Crown of Madness. Okay, first level spells. Chaos Bolt, Create or Destroy Water, Unseen Servant. Not there. Produce Flame. Not there. Most importantly, the Chaos Bolt spell is a favorite of Izzet spellcasters because of its unpredictable nature. It's not there. This guy is a representative for the guild as an Izzet spellcaster. What this is sort of highlighting to me, while I did go through, I went through some of the main, like, iconic, like Dimir. There's a spell called Encode Thoughts. That's integral. That's essential to the guild. Without that, like, the secrecy of it all might fall flat, right? There's little things like that, which is what's so wonderful about Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica, the official book. There's little seemingly mundane or, plain and simple things that permeate throughout the world, but they add so much flavor later on when you figure out how you can play into that. In this regard, the omission of this, or just simply not having it, is a major oversight. I mean, that's a huge part on content. What it does for me now, and what the issue it causes, is it makes it difficult for me to trust what was, the decisions that were made on what creatures have what spells or what creatures have what traits. Was this just something thrown together on, like, what sounds cool? And I understand adherence to the Magic the Gathering card game, but if it's going to be a supplement with Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica, you need to work in conjunction with that, but also sort of be Ravnica as the official book needs to be the foundation that you build upon. You don't divert from those essential aspects, like the fact that Chaos Bolt is a very visually recognizable and important spell for an Izzet spellcaster, and this is the epitome of the mage that represents the guild. Yet he doesn't have it. So why doesn't he have it? Like, it starts to ask too many questions that shouldn't have to be answered, because they're questions that I don't want to have to ask when I bring this guy to my table. Is he right? Is he statted right? Is it balanced? Like, does it make sense? Should I just redo it my own way? In the beginning, it does mention that, take the things you like here. If you need to feel like something's not going to fit for your group, your campaign, whatever, change it. And I respect that. But you know what? To me, that always should go without saying, because every DM has that freedom, right? When I purchase content, I'm not looking for something. There are times where I just want inspiration, and I just need a spark. I'm not really planning on using it. I'm hopeful that I can use it as is, that someone has sort of went through that legwork for me. But I always have the freedom to modify. If something doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. No content creator needs to tell me, hey, if there's something you don't like, get rid of it. Well, why don't I like it? Shouldn't I like it? I mean, you put it in there, right? So I know that I'm kind of, sounding kind of obnoxious in regards to this, but I don't know if it was an oversight, like they just missed it, but the fact that it wasn't just that single spell, but everything else is there, it's almost as though, let's just figure out what kind of cool guild mage there would be and what spellcaster, and let me throw some cool spells that sound neat. But there doesn't seem like there was a lot of research done as to like what is it spellcasters typically come to the table with. And I think you can't deviate from that, because that's what makes them the is it. If you deviate from that, then that's like the Gruul, who are like Hulk smash aggressive. Imagine are there certain equipment items, weapons, and attack, actions that are integral, that just scream, that's Gruul. Like, that's identified as Gruul immediately, just how they are, as their personality, their aggressiveness, their vibe. Are there certain things that are forgotten or overlooked? The other thing, when we're looking at the content and layout of some of these guys, I feel like some of the hit points are very heavily padded. Okay, so what I mean is we have a CR2 here with 43 hit points. Okay, and then we have a CR3 with over 100 hit points. Right, wrong, or otherwise, combining that with not following the general vibe of the Izzet Guildmage, just for the one example I came upon, I'm getting the general sense that some of this was kind of just hastily thrown together. For content, I'm going to go 3 out of 5. And I think that might be being a little bit generous, but I applaud the efforts, and I don't like to dump on the intention of another designer. Why 3 out of 5? It's definitely not anywhere touching 4. I am hesitant to not just call it a 2. We're talking about $12. I mean, $10 more, and we're getting in the range on a flash sale or something of official WotC produced stuff on D&D Beyond or on Amazon. In a book, like a hardcover thing on your shelf, tactile, full artwork. Like I said, 400 pages. This is 60. That's what, 7 times less? This is only twice as much price, and I'm getting 6-7 times the monsters, 6-7 times the artwork, 6-7 times the detail. So you can't look at content without thinking just straight up. That's why I said it in the beginning of the video. It's the bulk of everything. It's the most important factor. You can't look at content without comparing and thinking about, what am I getting for my money? So that's sort of also, a lead into my final thoughts. I think I was a little hasty I'm starting a new campaign, and I'm just looking for more goodness. I'm starting a new campaign pretty soon here within the next 2-3 sessions. So the next month or two within Guildmasters Guide to Ravnica, and I'm excited about reading about and learning about more stuff. But I personally feel like I need to go through every single thing. And sure, for the review, that would have been nice too, but it also would make the review 9 hours long. I personally feel like I need to go through every single monster with a fine-tooth comb. For a monster book that you're going to charge half price of an official WotC produced, adventure that has a full adventure plus 47 monsters, you need to kind of obsess about that stuff. So that's sort of my final thoughts. And as far as final score, here you go. That's all I have for you folks. I hope I gave you all enough to make that decision for yourself, whether this is a good fit for you and your gaming group. Once again, this is my review on the Creature Compendium of Ravnica. It is a PDF that I downloaded from DM's Guild for $12. Take care. Thanks for watching.